There are different types of custody arrangements in Alabama. One is true joint legal and physical custody. Many parents share true joint legal and physical custody. That simply means that not only do the parents have equal input about decisions for their children, but also they have equal time with their children, 50-50 time. So many people come to our office and want to make sure they get equal time. Thankfully, over the last several years, that has become the preferred method of custody for our courts. They want parents to share equal amounts of time unless they shouldn't for some other reason. So also, many people will have one parent is the custodian and the other parent has visitation with the children. That doesn't have to be supervised visitation, and it doesn't mean that you have no rights to your children or you have no input about their decisions. Alabama law is very plain that as a parent, you should have input about your decisions. Typically, the parent who is the physical custodian of the children is going to be the final decision maker. Because inevitably, if you and your child's other parent could get along about everything, you would still be in a relationship. And so, even if you try your best to work out things and decide what doctors to use, what school to go to, or any other decisions about your children, without fail, there's going to come some time when you can't agree, and some parent has to be the final call. That's going to be the physical custodian of the children. In true joint custody situations where they should have equal say about everything, you still can't always agree on all decisions. So oftentimes the court will lay out a final decision maker in certain areas like education, like religion, like extracurricular activities. Even in the best situations where parents can share true joint physical and legal custody of their children, there are going to come times when the parents can't agree. And so even if you share equal time and equal decision input about your children, the court needs to designate someone as the final decision maker on certain big areas. And so you want to make sure that if it's important to you because you've always done homework with the children and the other parent doesn't do that or they don't know how to do certain things, it may be really important to you to have final say over education. Or if you and your former spouse or you and your child's other parent have incredibly different views about medical care, and one has a really holistic approach, one has a traditional medical approach, you've got to make sure that one parent or the other is the final decision maker for certain things. So that is a situation that comes up in true joint custody. Who is going to be the final call on these certain things? Make sure that you get the areas that are important to you, because if you don't, and the court establishes those, it can be more difficult later on to go back and change who has the final say, unless an event has occurred that requires a change at that point. And so many people have one parent as the physical custodian of the children. The children live there. That parent makes all the decisions for the children, and the other parent gets visitation. For a long time, we had all over Alabama, courts would define one parent as the joint custody with the primary physical custodian and then visitation. Our courts really want for one parent to have legal custody unless they share equal time. And so more often than not, now courts are going to say that parent A is the custodian of the children and parent B has either secondary placement or they may call it visitation. Don't be offended by the word visitation. I know myself as a parent, if I hear that I have to visit with my children, it kind of sounds offensive to me, like they're my children. Why should I visit with my own children when I should have parenting time? Even just the words may be really important to you to make sure that it's laid out in your final decree or in your custody order that you have secondary placement or you have secondary parenting time with your children. That's important. We know that words matter, and we want you to know that when you have certain concerns like that, we take those to heart, and we're going to make sure that we fight with the other side and pursue our case with the court to get the best options that you need as far as the custody of your children, visitation, custody, joint custody. So many things play into this, but there can be no more important decision for a parent than about where am I going to spend my time with my children? Not the physical location, but where in life do we spend? Whether it's every other weekend, whether it's every weekend, whether you add an additional night during the week. There's all kinds of ways that it can play out. But the truth is, you need to spend as much time with your children as you can because your children need you and they need the other parent. And so it's very important to us to make sure that your custody arrangement is suitable, not just a generic one that fits for everyone, but is suited to your case. And when we do that, we can make sure that your children wind up in the best possible emotional, spiritual, physical place at the end of this relationship so you can provide all that your kids need along with the other parent. If you're facing a custody battle, you need to know some of the key factors that the court's going to want to look at. Obviously, children are expensive. and it takes a lot of money to raise kids. Any of us who have kids know that it always costs more than child support will provide, or maybe even sometimes more than you can take care of yourself. But you've got to be able to provide financially for your children. It's going to be very important to show to the court that either you have already got a job that's established and stable, and you've got a stable employment history so you can provide financially for your family, or that when you get child support from the other parent to supplement your income, that you're going to be able to provide the children's needs, because kids have to eat. Kids have to live in a home where the lights and the water are working and running. You have to have all the means of transportation and everything that costs money in our society. And so financial stability is an incredibly important factor that the courts are going to consider. So you've got to make sure, if you're planning to file for custody or if you're planning to file for divorce, sometimes this can be a decision that is a long time in the making, and you may need right now to get a job and start establishing your employment history to show that you are going to be able to financially provide for your children. One other factor that often plays into who should get custody of a child is mental health. Mental health is a really big area that many people don't want to talk about. It can be embarrassing. It can seem like nobody else deals with this, nobody else understands. The truth is, time and time again, we see people here in our office and the courts every single day see parents who have struggled with mental health for some reason. Now, you may not have extreme mental health issues that have required hospitalization, or maybe you have. It could be something as simple as depression. It could be something more severe like bipolar or schizophrenia. All kinds of issues about your mental health can affect what the court's going to decide to do about the custody of your children. Here's the truth. The court could not use a heart problem against you if you had a medical condition in the custody of your children. They wouldn't hold it against you if you had cancer. So why would the court hold it against you if you have a mental health issue that you struggle with or that you're maintaining because you see your therapist, you take your medication like you're prescribed, you keep yourself mentally in a good place? As long as you maintain your mental health treatment, we don't believe that your mental health should have any adverse effect on your custody battle. But it's going to be important if you have struggled with those areas in the past, or if you've been diagnosed with things like that, or maybe even if you have made threats to your spouse. I'm going to kill myself if you leave me, or I'm going to hurt you if you leave me, or I'm going to hurt the kids. Those may be passing words in an argument to you, but if they have it on an audio recording, if they videoed you saying that, or worse yet, if you've posted it on social media, or even if you've texted your spouse something like that, you better believe those text messages, those audio recordings, those social media posts are going to inevitably come up in court. And then we have to make sure that if you have even threatened something like that, that we're able to show that, yes, you may have had a problem at some point, or you may have an issue you've been struggling with for a while, but since that time, you've been taking steps to get all that under control, and you're seeing the appropriate therapist, you're making sure you take your medication. All these things matter. If your mental health is going to be an issue, then we need to make sure we manage it all in a way that's going to be the easiest for the court to swallow, to say, look, they had a problem, but the problem's under control. Your mental health is not something that will sink your custody case. Your mental health can be an issue that is an element of who you are. Thankfully, it's not all who you are. As a parent, your mental health can play into your custody battle. Not only do we deal with your finances or your mental health, so many parents have struggled with addiction issues of some kind in their life, whether it's an alcohol addiction, or maybe you may think it's as simple as marijuana. The truth is, in Alabama, marijuana is still illegal. And although DHR may not take your kids anymore for marijuana use, there are many judges in our state who have a very traditional view of this. And it's illegal. They're going to hold it against you in your case. You need to make sure that you're clean when we file for your divorce. Or if you file a custody battle, it's going to be incredibly important. But maybe someone has filed against you and they filed divorce, or they filed to get custody of your child or your children. And you know, if I get popped with a drug test today, it's going to be dirty. Here's the truth. Just because you used a drug yesterday doesn't mean you have to use today. And you can start your journey to sobriety right now. And then by the time we reach court, you can admit you had a problem. You can admit you used, but then we're going to be able to maybe get you into random drug screens to show that you're attending AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery, that you're in a group of people who are helping you maintain sobriety. If you will work the steps you've got to in order to stay clean, the court will respect you and know that, hey, this is a parent who is willing to put in the hard work, who's willing to do what's necessary, even over their desires, even though over what would be an easy thing to do, they're willing to put in the hard work to be a parent to these children. So addiction issues are going to come up in your case. It doesn't mean it's going to sink your case, but it's something we need to manage in the right way. And we have so many clients that we've helped to not only become a better parent, but become a more productive person, because throughout their divorce, we help them get the resources to stay clean. and to maintain that sobriety over the long term. And we love celebrating those wins because you may have had an issue with drugs and you may have 30 days clean. Congratulations, that's a big deal. And we know how hard it can be. And maybe you've reached longer periods. Now you're able to prove to the court that you did have issues, but you don't anymore. And you're committed to maintaining that sobriety over the long term. So you may have issues with addiction. You may have issues with mental health. You may have issues with finances. One other issue that often comes for many people is, what am I going to do about where I'm going to live with my children? Because my spouse and I have lived in this house together for years. There's physical abuse going on. I've got to leave the home. I've got to take the children. Where are we going to go? Just because you're hanging out at your parents' house or you're staying with a friend or something like that on a temporary basis does not mean that you're sunk. You got to have a plan, and our firm would love to help you put together a plan about how we are going to get the most stable housing arrangement we can for myself and my children. Don't feel like just because you've had to leave because of bad circumstances that you are up the creek, so to speak, because you don't have a house right now. We may have to file a motion with the court asking the court to give you temporary exclusive use and possession of your home and to remove your spouse from that home. That can happen. Many times people will leave temporarily from the home to be safe and to get out of the situation. Then they file for divorce, and then we file a motion to get you temporary exclusive use and possession of your house while the case is going on. That could be important because in some counties in Alabama, your divorce could go from start to finish in 6 months. There are other counties where divorce may go on for 2 or 3 years, and you can't imagine living temporarily other places for that long of a period of time. And so you may need, as a parent, to get temporary exclusive possession of your home to make sure you've got a stable home for the children. Because anytime that kids' lives are going to be disrupted through a custody battle, through a divorce, or any other kind of disruption, anything that we can do to minimize the changes is going to be really important for your children. And maybe it's staying in the home where you've always lived. So you may have to leave temporarily, but your stable housing is going to be very important as your case plays along. So we deal with housing, we deal with mental health, we deal with addiction, we deal with finances. Another area that so many people are going to have come up in their divorce case or even a custody battle sometimes is, how do I fix my schedule to make sure I have time with my children? Many people would work on a swing shift, or they have an uneven work schedule because they're a nurse, or they work in other fields that you don't have a very predictable schedule. Or maybe you work out in the heat and the wind and the cold in the winter months, and you are going to have long work hours. And then other times of the year, you may not be working at all because your landscape crew is off for a couple of weeks because there's snow on the ground. When you have things like this, your work schedule is going to inevitably come up in your divorce or your custody case. And when we look at your work schedule, we may not be able to always predict exactly what's going to happen on your work schedule. But some people get visitation or parenting time based on their work schedule. Others are able to work out their schedule with their employer to fit the custody schedule they're going to have. And the truth is, your employer will probably work with you. Don't be afraid to ask. If you get a court-ordered schedule of parenting time or visitation, I encourage you, talk to your employer. Chances are pretty strong that they are also a parent and they want you to spend time with your children. They know that a good employee is also a good parent, is also a good person. They want you to be able to be involved with your family because that's going to make you more fulfilled as a person and help you perform better on your job. So don't be afraid to talk to your employer. It's going to be really important when you look at a custody battle or a divorce that involves children, that any little factor that you think might come up, you got to be honest with your lawyer about it. Because if we know, we can manage it. Maybe there are some things that are bad on your side of the case. I'd rather know that up front and be the one to confront it with the court to begin with, and then you can put your own spin on it. It doesn't mean be dishonest. We always are going to be honest with the court, but we can make sure that you know that we deal with the hard things up front and confront them right on. You don't want them to hear it from the other side. You want to be the one that admits or talks about what the deficiencies or the problems of your case are to the court. And then we're able to explain how not only have we dealt with those, but here's how I've overcome or how I'm overcoming these issues to be the parent that I should. So there are a lot of factors that will play into your custody battle. And when you deal with these, everyone can be important for different reasons. Some are more important in certain situations than the other, but the truth is you're a whole person. You're not just an employee. You're not just a soccer coach. You're not just any individual things. You're a lot of things. And as a parent, every aspect that goes on in your life is going to matter to your case, to your judge, and it matters to us as your lawyers. There's a word that a lot of parents don't like. It's called co-parenting. because you think I'm the best person to have custody of my children. I'm the one who's able to provide all they need. Why should that knucklehead have any input on my decisions about the children? Your kids are going to be better off if you will co-parent effectively. As we look at a divorce or a custody case, we've got to make sure that your children know that both parents are valuable. The truth is, you don't have to say anything negative about that other parent to your children, because if there really is something bad going on, they're going to figure it out on their own. They may be very young and understand it on a different level, or they may be an older teenager and really understand what's going on. You cannot talk negatively about the other parent to your children. Not only does it psychologically hurt your children, but it hurts your case. Don't talk negatively about them, because co-parenting is so important. Because in whatever level you're going to have to work together, you're going to be tied to that other person until your children are 19. And then honestly, you're going to be tied together for your whole life in some way, because you're going to have grandchildren. You're going to be tied together at birthday parties and soccer parties, and all these things are going to happen in your life. You got to learn to put your personal differences to the side to whatever level you can and act like an adult. As adults, we have to do hard things. And as a parent who's divorced, or as a parent who's not with the other parent, one of the hardest things you can have to do is to work together for the best interest of your children. But I promise you this, having handled thousands of cases all over Alabama, our firm has seen parents who have done it right. Sadly, we've also seen parents who have really messed it up. And the people that pay is not the other spouse that you feel like you're really getting one over on. The people that pay when you refuse to co-parent are your children. We want to help you find ways that are effective, not only for you and for the other parent, but also to bring your children into the mix, to know that mom and dad love me enough that they're willing to work together, even though they can't be together. They love me as a child enough to put those differences aside and to work together for my best interest. That will help your children not only grow up effectively, but one day your kids can follow your example, and they can be good parents too, because they've seen you do the hard work, and they've seen you co-parent with somebody that you don't even want to be with anymore, but you're willing to put your personal differences aside in order to co-parent your children effectively. Super important. You can't overestimate the importance of working together for your children's best interest. You love your kids, and even though that other person may not love you, they probably love your kids too. And if a child can have more love in their life, it's always better for those children. So I encourage you, learn to do the big dirty word to you, to co-parent. It's not easy, but I promise you it's worth it. So if you have any questions about child custody, I encourage you right now, reach out to our firm. We're looking forward to helping you.